Hey everyone, practic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are live. This is Monday, April 1st. No fooling, just straight business tonight. I saw some pretty good April Fool's jokes today that were Leslie showed me at lunchtime, but not us. I don't ever think about stuff like that. I don't ever think about funny stuff. Every time I take a personality profile, I never do. I score low on the fun part of it, and that's really something to me because I think I'm a pretty fun guy. But I don't think in those terms right there. So this is just straight up April 1st. We've been too busy to be thinking about joking around anyway. So, but we're here live with you. We're on the radio, 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. We're on all of our social media. Hope you guys had a great Easter weekend, whatever you want to call it, Resurrection Weekend. And you know, for us, it's we don't. Our kids are grown. We don't have any Easter egg hunts. We're waiting on grandkids. We haven't gotten there yet, and but we try to make sure that everybody understands, and we always have tried to make them understand that you know there was a resurrection that happened. At least that's what we celebrate that whole thing for. And I did get some explanation this morning in the 6 a.m. class. I got a little bit of explanation about um, the whole reason that we have rabbits and eggs and all that sort of thing. Because I guess it used to be a pagan holiday where they were worshiping the god of reproduction or fertility or something, the god of fertility. And so I guess that's where the Easter egg, the bunny, came in. I don't really know. To tell you the honest truth, I don't really know. I just got that explained to me this morning, and um, I hadn't really spent a lot of time worrying about it, really. But because I pretty much have known Jesus every single day that I've been on this earth. I don't really think that I've had a single day that I haven't known him. And some days I listen to him, and some days I don't. But the it's always been that way. So whatever, you know. Well, I don't think he's gonna. Whatever. I don't want to get political on that. I don't want to get even spiritual on that judgment or whatever. But we had a great weekend. It was a balanced weekend at my house, and so some of it was great, some of it wasn't so great. But we're glad to be with you here tonight, and I've got a good show. Obviously, I got we've missed this taking health to church the last couple of weeks, and so we didn't miss it yesterday. So we got a great sermon for you, and I think it's maybe one of the best ones of the year when it comes to um, understanding health, taking yesterday's sermon that we learned at Hillside Church. I thought Brad, the pastor there, did a great job of explaining it. I thought he did a good job of it was a good put together sermon, and I think there's some deep lessons in health and wellness that we can learn from it. So that's what we're going to do tonight on the show. So you guys hope will stick around and listen to the show, and I hope we can bring a lot of that to you. Before we get started, we're going to talk about our supplement of the day. And this is actually this little segment that we've been doing is starting to make a little bit of an impact to some of the people out there. You're taking this information that we're giving you, and it's fitting into your life, and that's exactly what this whole show is about. This is life with me. I'm sharing my life with you, and I'm doing it every night from 6 to 7 right here on the radio and on social media. And you guys understand how hard that is to do 2 shows like that and by yourself. And so the quality and the sound and all that stuff, sometimes it's a little hard to deal with, but it's still the truth. And I think that's the real hook of the whole thing. And not that I'm fishing, but I guess I am. I'm fishing for health. But it's like, look, what I'm telling you is stuff that I'm really, if you're listening to me right now on the radio, or you're listening to me on social media, or you come back after a while and listen to us on social media, I'm really talking to you. I want you to have a better life. I want you to be able to live a long, healthy life, as long as you can live a long, healthy life. And then one day, like a candle, you're just done and you move on to the next place. But while you're here, I don't want you to be broken down and have to deal with the pain and misery that goes along with losing your health. So that's what we're talking about. So tonight, Cardio Plus. Cardio Plus is one, and I don't believe that I don't think we've had this one. And Cardio Plus is just exactly what it sounds. It's heart support. I'll read it right here. Cardio Plus is a heart supplement that helps support heart cardiovascular health, supports the healthy function of the heart and other muscles, supports healthy circulation, provides ingredients with antioxidant activity, contains bovine heart PMG extract, supports energy metabolism, contains a combination of key ingredients from Cataplex B2, Cataplex E2, Cardiotrophin PMG, and Cataplex C. Excellent sources of riboflavin, niacin, and vitamin B6. Good source of antioxidant of vitamin C. So Cardio Plus is just something that gives your heart support. Last year, when I was having my little episodes, for whatever reason I was having those, went up to see my friend up in Ruidoso. He got me onto some of this Cardio Plus, and it really was great. So the indications are for high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, angina pectoris, neuromuscular disorders, hypertension, muscle atonicity, and coronary insufficiency. So if you're having any sort of heart problems, now listen, let me make sure that you understand what I'm saying. Am I saying to you that I'm treating your heart disease? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. You should get a cardiologist to treat your heart disease. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that this particular supplement is food. That's what Standard Process is. That's why I love them so much. This is a whole foods company. What is the ingredients of this? Bovine heart PMG extract. Those are protomorphogens. We talked about them. They're the missile defense system, right? Bovine liver, calcium lactate, porcine stomach, bovine orchic extract, Spanish moss, defatted wheat germ, nutritional yeast, inositol, bovine spleen, ovine spleen, and it's like there's a whole list of it, right? Right? It's all food. It's all whole food that is, and then there's some added vitamins that are in there for you. But the whole thing is that I love about these guys is that it's whole food. So if you're having some heart problems, it is a whole food supplement. And I want to read this commentary to you. Specific for cardiac support, it supports nerve and muscles and overall cardiovascular maintenance. Great all-natural source of coenzyme Q10. Cardio Plus is outlined further in the product bulletin and therapeutic food manual. It is described in the section entitled Heart in the therapeutic food manual. This information would revolutionize cardiovascular treatment if taught in medical schools. Of particular note, it is the Cataplex E2 phospholipid component of this product which conserves tissue oxygen. Used successfully to support the 1991 American Everest expedition and the 1995 American Karakoram expedition. I didn't say that right. With excellent reports from the expedition medical doctor and expedition leader relating to hypoxic conditions. So if you're in a situation where you can't get enough oxygen to your heart, Cardio Plus is something that's made for that type of thing right there. So it's a good product. If you're interested in it, you can get it at therock.standardprocess.com, or you can call us at our office. Always, if you are taking one of the supplements from therock.standardprocess.com, I highly recommend that you give us a call and have a conversation about it. And I also want to say it one more time because I know how people are. I'm not treating your heart condition. I'm not. I'm just sharing information about food. It'd be the same thing if I was sharing information about broccoli or apples. I'm sharing information about food, and it's good food that's targeted to try to help your heart. So that's what I got about the supplement for the night. If you want to know any of these, you can go back. Always, if you want to text me, you got a question you want to ask me tonight, feel free to do that. 806-794-0400. You can call me. You can text me on that line. Or if you want to send me a message on Facebook, I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. YouTube or Twitter. Some of those are harder. I've said that before, but I haven't quite figured out how to get that YouTube one done while we're live on the show. But so anyway, so let's get to church tonight. So it Easter Sunday, I would say Easter Sunday and Christmas are probably the two biggest times that people go to church in the year. Some of the people, the only two times they go to church is on those 2 days. So, of course, it was packed. And, of course, you guys probably have heard a whole lifetime of sermons on Easter Sunday. And I'm not trying to preach tonight. I'm trying to teach tonight. That's what I'm trying to do. And what we do on this Monday night, in case you're new to the show, is we take the sermon that we learned at church. I go to Hillside Church here in Lubbock, and I take the sermon that's being taught, and I listen to that sermon. When I'm listening to it, I'm listening to it from a health and wellness standpoint. I'm trying to learn, and I take notes while I'm sitting there in church, and I'm trying to write this out and say, hey, how does this apply to what we're doing on a daily basis as it relates to our health? And man, this was a good one too. So you guys you've heard all these stories before, but I think it's a good one, and we'll get into it. So it's all about, of course, Matthew 28, that tells the story of the resurrection, and it tells the story of Jesus wasn't at the tomb. They went to see him, and he wasn't there, and so there was lots of people that had seen him, but when it was, this one's more about Luke, and it's going to get into Luke 16 and 19 is where it's going to start. Luke 16:19 is where it's going to start. And when Jesus was talking, he taught in parables, obviously, and he taught in parables, and I think he taught in parables so that the common folks could understand him, like myself. That's kind of why we try to talk in parables when we're talking about health, because it doesn't do any good for the highest level scholar to understand it at the deepest level possible and then not be able to share it with us in a way that we can understand it, right? That doesn't serve any of us any good. So Jesus, when he was teaching in parables so that we could understand it. And I want to just read it real quick, and then we'll come back and work through it, and we'll work through and how it relates to health. So, shoot up. Sorry, hang on. I just lost I turned my page here. I was looking up a reference verse, and I forgot what I was doing. Okay, so this is Luke 16, verse 19. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In hell, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away and Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. And the rich man answered, Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment. Abraham replied, They have Moses and the prophets. let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. And he said to him, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. It's like, whew, man. Like, I was listening to that yesterday, and I was thinking, golly, that's a great little passage right there when it comes to health and wellness and the way that we live, right? Because it's very there's so much to unpack right there. So the thing that the sermon was talking about, the sermon was talking about. He broke it down into 4 main points. He broke it down into 2 people, broke it down into 2 places, he broke it down into 2 prayers, and he broke it down into 2 principles. So we're going to kind of walk through those and see how that relates to health tonight. So the 2 people, the rich man, and it says right here, there was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen. And it says, and this is Jesus talking right here. So it says, purple, well, you guys may all understand this, but back in the day, in order to get purple ink, you had to have a lot of money in order to dye something purple, because purple wasn't very common, and it took a lot of money in order to have purple. So only the people that wore purple were the royalty and those who had money. But at the same time, he was also talking about fine linen. And linen would be what you would wear underneath or your underwear. So the pastor was he was saying, I think Jesus was actually throwing a little shade right there when he was breaking this down. It was his take on it. I'm going with that. I don't know if the biblical scholars would agree with that or not, but I'm going with it. That maybe he was the rich man. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and lived in luxury every day. So you got the 2 people. You got the rich man on earth that has everything he needs, more than he needs. That he's got more than he needs. He's living in wealth, right? He's got it all, and he's got the fancy house, and he's got all the stuff, and he's got all the money. And then you got the poor man. You got Lazarus, and he's a beggar. He's covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. Now, the point of that is that back in biblical times, dogs were not like these sweet little pets that we have today. Dogs were kind of wild, a little bit more like wolves. They were wild and mangy, and for a dog to come lick your sores, that was a bad deal. Like you were in bad shape if that was the case. And so that's the thing we're talking about right here. And what the pastor said yesterday is the only time Jesus used a person's name. And it means the one who God helps, Lazarus, the one who God helps. And he would always reference someone else in the Bible as the rich person or the person at the well or the whatever. But this time he used that person's name specifically because he's trying to make a specific point that there's a difference between those 2 guys. He didn't say the rich man's name. He just said there was a rich man. But he wants to make a point to us, I think, that Lazarus was the one that he's definitely talking about, right? So he's talking about the 2 people. And you think about that, what struck me about that was that it's kind of what I said on Friday's show was that, look, it doesn't matter which side of the tracks. Remember we were talking about San Bernardino and Loma Linda, California, and the guy says that the people in San Bernardino don't have access to good food, and it's like they can't drive across underneath the interstate to Loma Linda and get the good food. What do you mean they don't have access to it? They don't have access up here to the good food, and because they could get the different kind of food, or maybe they don't have the money to get the food. But I think it has more to do with the access and the knowledge between the 2. So that's what kind of struck me. It's like, oh, we got the rich and we got the poor, and there's a difference between the 2. And then they talked about the two places. And they talked about heaven where Lazarus was, and they talked about hell where the rich man was. And the time came when the beggar died and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In hell, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So, man, it's like some of us don't think about, and from a health and wellness standpoint, because that's really what I'm not trying to preach the gospel on this show, even though I don't mind doing it, but I'm not built for that. I'm not trying to be a preacher. But well, I don't know if I'm built for it or not. That's not my reason to have the show. But there's a hell, and some of us don't believe it. Some of us don't believe that there's a hell at all. We don't believe there's a heaven, and obviously I'm not talking about your belief system, but what I am talking about is the difference between what you will find on earth when you separate yourself from God, and that's basically what hell is. It's being in a place separate from God, and you've done that with your health. If you let your health get away from you, you find hell on earth. It's very sad. It's very man. I can't even describe the horribleness of it, and the torment is a word, but it's not a word that I use every day. But I'll hardly ever use it. But it's just if you don't believe that there's a difference between good health and bad health, let's lose your health. You'll find it right there. And some people, the rich man, he spent all of his days as if there wasn't a hell. And he was told, and there was teachings. And of course he knew the teachings because he was rich and he had the opportunity to learn, right? He had all of the opportunity that he could possibly have. And then, but he was like, nah. Like, he separated himself from God on earth, and then he found hell after he died. Well, on earth, we separate ourselves from health on a daily basis because we don't really believe in hell until we lose our health. How many of us have done this, really? How many of us have completely and honestly just trashed our health? And we've not paid attention to any of the fundamentals of health. Food, water, oxygen, rest, and nerve energy. We've done nothing to the fundamentals, right? We don't care anything about what we eat. And there's a passage that says in this book, right? Don't worry about what you eat. I don't think that's what he meant. I think that teaching is not exactly. He's not saying about eat whatever you want to, because there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. And if you've ever been in athletics, you understand that there's a difference between playing to win and playing not to lose. If there's a difference in life between playing to win and playing not to lose, and you will take some of these scriptures and you'll argue. They'll use them as a defense to argue about that. But there is a hell on earth, and it's when you lose your health. You separate yourself from God because you've separated yourself from your why. That you've separated yourself from the reason that you're supposed to be here. You've not defined your why. You don't care about what you're supposed to be doing. And then once if you define your why, then you have the opportunity to really work on that every single day. And you will find, if you really find your why, and which to me is your God-given talent, your God-given gift, your thing that God put you on earth for. When we lose that, when we separate ourselves from our gift, when we separate ourselves from our gift, we don't care about what we eat. We will sabotage our meals. We will sabotage our fitness. We will sabotage our sleep. We don't care about any of the fundamental things that go along with health and wellness. And we will end up in a state of hell in one form or fashion or the other. I don't know if I'm just crazy. I don't know if I'm the only one that sees things like this. I don't know if you guys sometimes listen to this show and think that boy is smoking something, but I really do. I really have gotten to a place at 53 years old where I finally understand it. I've seen enough of it and I've studied it long enough that it's the driving factor to me in health and wellness. It's the one thing, and that you will find, and we don't. Sometimes it just takes a minute to say. It just takes one person to just say. Maybe you're listening to the show tonight, and maybe you're just waiting for someone to tell you to stop with the nonsense, or you're going to find hell. And I think if we keep going, we're going to keep going right after the break. But when we come back on the other side of the break, we'll see it in the scriptures that you won't believe it. Some of the people won't believe it. It won't matter what we say. That it won't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter what prophet brings you the information. It doesn't matter what is. If the resurrected could come back and you're still not going to quit eating donuts. This is Jason Clemmons. I'll be right back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We'll be right back right after these messages. I'm going to save this for you guys out there. I really want to save this till after the break, and then we'll break the rest of this down. But if you got any questions or any comments, I think Susan commented on the last show, and that we had on Friday night, and her comment was, "Going to have to watch this again and take serious notes." Yeah, I really enjoyed Friday night show just to talk about health, just to not have any sort of thing that was somewhat scripted or anything that we were trying to cover or it was just a straight up health night, and I think it was impactful. I think last Friday night show was pretty good, and if you guys get a chance to listen to it, you should go back. Or if you haven't seen it, you should go back and listen to Friday night show. If you're on the radio, which I'm not talking to the radio right now, so it doesn't matter. But you guys on social media, if you hadn't seen it, if you're watching this one but you hadn't seen Friday night show, it's a pretty good one to go back and watch. I think it's got some good information, and I actually got a new patient today that listened to Friday night show, and we were talking about Colacol, and so he came and he was like, "Hey, I don't have a gallbladder, and I was interested in what you said about that." And so we had the opportunity to work him up, and maybe he's listening to it tonight, but we had an opportunity to work him up, and then there's some other things going on as well that we can help him with. Remember, the gallbladder was second to the brain. It wasn't first. It was second to the brain. So if your gallbladder's not working, your brain's not working either, as far as I'm concerned. If your kidneys aren't working, your brain's not working. If your liver is not working, your brain's not working. And I'm going to argue that your brain wasn't working first. Let me get us back on here. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Jason Clemmons. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we are taking health to church tonight. So we're talking about two people in two places. We got the rich man and we got Lazarus, and we got heaven and we got hell. The rich man chose to separate himself from God, so he got hell for eternity. Separate yourself from God and find hell. That's what I got from that deal. Separate yourself from your purpose and watch what you do to your health, and then it will deteriorate and you will find it. Then there was two prayers. There was the rich man, and he was basically begging for mercy. The rich man also died and was buried in hell, where he was in torment. He looked up and saw Abraham far away, with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, "Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in the water to cool my tongue." Yeah, his prayer was his first prayer, please bring Lazarus to me. He recognizes Lazarus for the first time, really. Like that same guy that was sitting outside your house, that was that you didn't have time for. You just were too busy and you were too rich and you didn't have time to deal with him. That guy is the one that now, that's kind of interesting that the rich man is recognizing the beggar that was laid at his gate all of a sudden, not because he valued Lazarus, but because he wanted it for himself. It's still in the pits of hell. The only thing he could think about was himself. He was thinking about himself the whole time, and now in the pits of hell, that he's thinking about himself, and he's praying that, hey, look, can you help us, right? And they said he's not sorry for his life, he just wants relief, right? Now, the pastor made a good point in the middle of the sermon yesterday, and I'll make it again tonight. This is not a bash on rich people, right? This whole scripture right here is not bashing rich people in any form or fashion. It's simply giving. Hang on one second. It's simply giving us an illustration of attitude. It's giving us an illustration of attitude. So the first thing, that prayer that he gives us, is he gives us the prayer. His first prayer is, hey, send him down here to help me. Just let him bring just a drop of water to put it on my tongue, because I'm just in misery down here. And then it's said, but Abraham replied, son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. There becomes a time in our health that we will lose our health. There comes a time where we'll either lose our body or we'll lose our brain. One of those two things is going to happen. And when you lose your body, you're going to wish you wouldn't have done the things that you did. Now, there may be a time where you just get old and lose your body, and that's fine. But you could be 50 years old and have a heart attack, right? You could develop cancer in some form or fashion. And it's so funny, because every single time it happens, every single time I get a patient that comes in that's got cancer, all of a sudden they want to talk about not eating sugar. Because we've gone over cancer as a metabolic disease, right? We've talked about how cancer feeds sugar cells. We talked about how cancer feeds sugar cells. Sugar feeds cancer cells. We've talked about how that happens, right? So we don't. But every single time a person comes in and they've got cancer, they will come in and they want to talk to me about, hey, what do you do about health and wellness from a health and wellness standpoint? What do you do if we've got cancer? But when we tried to talk to them about health 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 3 years ago, they weren't interested at all. They had no interest whatsoever, because they had no pain. They had no disease. They had no problem. And sometimes there is a chasm that's built between wellness and that disease that you can't cross. Like, no one can get to you because you've lost it, because you've pushed it on down the road so far that you don't even care anymore. And so you're that no one can get to you. Sorry, I got a bunch of texts going on in my phone tonight. You don't want to get into that place. You don't want to get into that place to where you build such a big divide between where you've gotten yourself into and the disease the wellness that you're looking for. And it's just so interesting that we do that. It's super common that a person will take themselves, and me included, that studies all this stuff, right? It wasn't until I was 51 years old that I finally, it started when I was 49. It started when I was 49. And then that was the first time that it really got my attention. Like from the age of 20, let's see, I was 22 years old. Well, I was 22 years old when I finished playing college football. I was 198 pounds. I went to my 30-year high school reunion at 283 pounds. I didn't even think about I didn't think about my why. I didn't think about health. I didn't understand any of it. I was like, and I'm a health and wellness chiropractor. It's so unbelievable to me. It's so unbelievable to me that I'm a health and wellness chiropractor and I was 283 pounds and I wasn't well and I wasn't working out and I was eating refined carbs and I was hooked on sugar and all of those things, right? So I am not throwing stones at anybody. I'm not throwing stones. I'm saying that, man, there was a time that I was that dude right there. I was that dude that I was so caught up in my daily activity that I just was building this great divide that was almost unreachable. Who knows how close I was before I got to that point of being so separated that I couldn't get unseparated, right? That's the first thing that Abraham explains to the rich man is that, look, there's no way for me to get from here to you, and there's no way for you to get from there to me. It's too late. It's too late. We can't do it, right? And if that's health, that's a bad thing. So then the guy says, all right, fine. He's like, look, then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment. Now, how many people out there, how many people do we go tell? Like if we could talk to the dead and we could talk to those people who've lost their health, right? And we just listen to those people who've lost their health. And they would try to tell us. My dad told me for years, like, don't let it get away from you. Don't let it get away from you. And I was like, he's like, you're just a couple biscuits away from being 300 pounds. And I was like, Dad, you're so crazy. Like I was just like, there ain't no way, man. Like I'm 198 pounds. So I got to 210. Like, dude, that ain't that much. Like I got to 210. It wasn't any big deal. And then all of a sudden, and then I got to 225. It's just 15 more pounds. It was just like a little increment. So it was 225. But then I went to chiropractic school, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting all day long, I'm making excuses for it, right? And I'm busy, and I'm not thinking about food, and I'm not thinking about fitness, and I'm not thinking about those things. I'm thinking about other things. I got other things on my mind, and then all of a sudden it goes to 235, and then pretty soon it goes to 240, and then it just it's incremental in small little increments about how it gets away from us. And then it gets to this place where all of a sudden we go to our 30-year high school reunion and we're sitting there at 283 pounds. We've got inflammation boiling inside of our body. No telling what we're doing to our heart and our lungs and our liver. No, there's no telling all of the things that I was doing to myself, right? Where was I headed? I was headed towards hell. I was headed towards hell for myself, or I was headed towards hell for my family. I was headed towards hell for my wife who was about to lose her husband from a heart attack. I was headed towards hell for my kids who was about to lose their dad because he wouldn't stop for just a second and think about what he was doing to himself. I would be willing to bet you that the rich man didn't sit there every day and think, oh, screw God, I'm not going to listen to anything he's got to say. I don't think that was his daily activity. I think he was so busy, so just doing whatever rich people did back in the day. I think he was so busy taking care of his stuff, there were a lot of days he didn't even think about that. then and he was separating himself by accident. And then all of a sudden, whammo, he died. The clock's over. It's over. It's over and done. You can't. One of the biggest regret that I have in my college football career is playing against Texas, where there was two plays in that game that I still regret to this day. One of them, they ran a blitz and we were running option play into the blitz. And I knew I was supposed to check out of it, but I ran the play anyway, and they tackled us for a loss, and they acted like they did something special, and they didn't do jack squat. I saw the whole thing. Lance Gunn was moving that direction anyway. He gave the whole thing away. I knew the guy was blitzing, and all I had to do is check out of it. But instead, I thought, well, maybe we could get the block and be out the gate. I've mentioned that before, right? You can go back and watch the Texas game. It's exactly how it happened. We were headed to the south end zone, and we ran the ball to the right, and then we ended up missing a field goal. I regret that day right there. But the other one I regret is on the last drive. I bounced a pass to a guy named Curtis Hudson. That actually, I saw him not too long ago in a restaurant right here in Lubbock. I bounced a pass to him because I was out of gas. I was out of gas because I didn't get myself in good enough shape to be able to make the play at the end of the game. I threw 52 passes. It was probably my 50th or 51st pass of the game. And I was out of gas, and I didn't have enough fitness to be able to make the play on the last drive to go try to score again. I was tired. I was winded, and I regret that because I thought, how many days could I have gone to the gym? How much better could I have got myself in shape? How many less carbohydrates could I have eaten, or refined carbohydrates could I have eaten? Because I went to dinner one night with Bart Rager, and he had a chicken salad or chicken sandwich and a water, and I'm having a Whopper and fries and a Coke. It's like, yeah, all that stuff adds up, right? It added up in the moment that it mattered, and I didn't have the fitness to finish the game. It's very irritating. We don't know when we're going to be called on to express health. That's the hardest thing about health. We don't know which day it's going to be that we're going to have to express health. We don't know which day it's going to be that we're going to have to express fitness. We don't know which day that it's going to be called on. We don't know what's happening inside of our body right now with our cancer cells. We don't know that every single day we make cancer cells and that our immune system recognizes those cancer cells and gets rid of that cancer. We're doing that stuff on our own, but what if our immune system is not getting rid of those cancer cells? What if we're feeding that cancer cell that's trying to starve itself, and we keep feeding it more sugar and more sugar until finally someone is able to find it on an x-ray or some sort of exam or an MRI or a CT scan or something like that, right? What if the things that we're doing today is creating the chasm that is separating us from God, and we're not able to listen to anyone because it's like the rich man saying, hey, please send someone to my house. Send someone to my house and just warn my brothers. I got a brother. I got a sister. You got a brother and a sister. You think if I was to call your brother and sister and tell them all about health and wellness, you think they'd listen to anything that we're saying? Do you think it would really matter? And Abraham says no. Abraham says, he says, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. Nope. It won't matter who goes to them. And I thought to myself when I was reading that, it kind of gets into the principles. So those are the two prayers right there. And then in the two principles, the first one is, you don't need to see a resurrection to believe in God's testimony about the resurrection. That's the first principle. You don't need to see a resurrection to believe God's testimony about the resurrection. And the second principle is a refusal to see Christ in all of Scripture leads to a rejection of Christ's words in Scripture. And that's the one that I was like, wow, a refusal to see Christ in all of Scripture. When you read all of these, whether you're reading the Old Testament or you're reading the New Testament, if you can't see where Christ is in all of that, then what will happen is it will lead to the rejection of Christ's words in Scripture. When you finally get to Luke, you're not. If you're reading the Old Testament, you can't see where Christ belongs. Then when you get to Luke, you're not going to believe it anyway. Or when you get to Matthew and it talks about the resurrection, you're not going to believe it anyway, right? We pick and choose the things that we're going to believe when it comes to health. And I think when I read this one right here, it's like, no, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. And Abraham said to him, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. One of the things that I've got from yesterday's message is that I think we're so far away from where we could be that all we see is what we believe exists. I'll try to say that better. We don't have enough examples in our world of true health and wellness people that are just walking in that realm. We don't have enough examples of those people to make the large number of people buy into the idea. And I think some people, there's a good group of us out there. And I can say us now because I'm in that group now. I wasn't for 51 years, but I wasn't so far away. The beauty of health and wellness is that until you get that broken, it's almost like there's a spring load that's going to bring health back to you. You've got an opportunity to bring health back to you every day that you're alive, if you've got a chance, but until you reach that point of no return. And then that's where you start to find hell on earth. So when I've made that decision to try to get healthy, I wasn't so far away that I couldn't bring it back to me, because God will try every single solitary way possible to get you to see him. He'll try every way that he knows how, and he knows all the ways. He'll try and try and try to get us to say, oh, I finally got it. And I don't really think 51 years is all that long a period of time, like considering all the years that there's ever been in the history of time. So I finally got it. Maybe I'll live another 51 years, and then I'll have gotten it for 51 years. Like maybe I'll live 52. I'm headed for all the way to 113. That's my goal. So we need more examples. We need more examples in our families. And I've said this before. Leslie lost 40 pounds when I quit eating sugar. And if you're a man listening to the show, you should think about what that means, right? Your family needs an example. And I was a poor example for my kids when it came to fitness and nutrition. I was halfway in, but I didn't really believe it. I didn't really believe the hell that comes along with being unfit and unhealthy. And I've passed some of that on to my son and my daughter. And I've created some hell in their lives because I didn't pay attention to the hell that creates. And what I'm trying to share on these shows is I'm trying to share with you in case you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen the hell that it creates, I'm trying to open your eyes just a little bit so that you do see the hell that it creates. Because when you lose your health for yourself, you're also creating that kind of problem for your entire family. And as a man, we need those examples. We need those examples of the man to handle it. And and I'm not saying women can't handle it. I'm just saying that it's harder in a marriage when one person's trying to be healthy and the other person's not trying to be healthy. It's harder in that marriage. And it's not fair to the children. It's not fair to the children when one of you is trying to be healthy and the other one is not. And I think part of the reason that we don't try to be healthy is because either no one will get our attention, or we don't really truly believe that it makes any difference. And it wouldn't matter if Jesus himself came back. It wouldn't matter if Moses came back. We'd be like, how many of us would really shake in our boots? Like I remember one time I saw some news report about them finding the tomb of James, I believe. I believe that's Jesus' brother's name, right? And his brother named James. And they found the tomb of James. And it was like legit, like it was a real, like it was real. And all of a sudden, I remember having like this little catch in my spirit, just kind of like, whoa, like they really found that. Like, what if all of a sudden all of these words were real? Yeah, some of us believe these words are real, but would it check you? Would it check your spirit just a little bit? Would you be like, oh my gosh, like that was all that stuff was really real, right? Well, I think the same thing goes along with our health. I think we need those examples of people. We need those shining lights into the world, those people that don't need to see the resurrection. They can learn from those other people who are trying to teach them. They can learn from Moses and the prophets. They can read about Jonah, and they can read about the 3 days in the belly of the big fish, right? They can learn the messages, and then they can apply those messages in a way before it's too late. And that's what we're trying to do. So if you're one of those people, if you're one of those lights out there in the world, I just want to really encourage you to keep shining bright. Like, keep shining your light. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Don't quit. Don't become fatigued by the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you for working so hard to be one of those shining lights into the world. If that's who you are, be one of those shining lights. If you're one of those people on the fence, take this lesson and say, listen, like there's a chance right here. I'm working myself towards hell. Just be honest with yourself. Just talk to yourself. If you're driving in the truck right now, just ask yourself, what have you had to eat today? When's the last time you exercised? What are you doing to do something that's healthy? And why are you giving your kids macaroni and cheese? Why are you feeding your kids donuts? Why are you taking your kids because you love them? Why are you feeding them cinnamon? That's what we did at my house, cinnamon rolls. It was like cinnamon rolls. Because it doesn't matter, right? We're too busy. If you're one of those people, just stop. Just stop and think about it tonight. Stop and think about it, and think about what you have an opportunity to do. Because I'm telling you, when you run the race to win, when you play to win, it's way better. The life that I have now, 2 years after this situation, and 4 years after I really got into this whole, like really understood it, this life that I have now is so much better than the life that I had for the last from 22 years old to 49 years old. Not even close. Hey, that's the end of the show. I hope you guys got something from that. And if you got any questions, holler at me, send me a text, send us a message. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great evening, and we will talk to you. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6.